Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another very detailed forecast update coming your way. We've got a lot to be talking about today, including some blizzard conditions and a powerful low pressure system lashing Tasmania, Victoria and New South Wales. We're also going to be talking about cold fronts set to impact the entire southern parts of the country, including Western Australia. We'll talk about the cold weather plaguing New South Wales and Queensland, and also some rainfall for far north Queensland. So all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Your support is greatly appreciated. So just taking a look at the satellite picture right now with the rain radar overlaid, already some very interesting things and a lot to be picking apart here. The low pressure system now racing into the Bass Strait right now. It's actually quite a lot stronger than what we did think in yesterday's forecast, but that's okay because it is the worst conditions are certainly over, at least for the northern parts of Tasmania and for some parts of Victoria. The rainfall, however, still going to be continuing for Victoria and New South Wales, and some very heavy snowfall accumulations are also expected throughout the course of today in the mountainous areas of New South Wales and Victoria. So we'll dive straight into that right now. But what's actually happened already is we've had accumulations up to 50, 60, maybe even 70 millimeters across the northern parts of Tasmania. Ben Lomond AWS has had 68 millimeters overnight. So if you do live in the northern parts of Tasmania, let me know what the weather has been like overnight, because it has been rather violent. And other parts of Victoria as well have also received some very good rainfall too. And that's being complemented with some very strong winds. Right now, wind gusts anywhere between sort of Kangaroo Island in South Australia right through the Victorian coastline, basically over towards where the Furneaux Islands reach, up towards Victoria around Wilson's Promontory and Hogan Island. We're talking about wind gusts averaging 70 or 80 kilometres an hour along the coastline, and sustained winds between 40 and 60 kilometres an hour. So certainly strong gale force winds across the Victorian coastline, and that's been complemented by heavy showers, which will be easing throughout the course of today, but certainly there's been a violent night of some severe weather across Victoria and South Australia. Also into New South Wales as well, you can see Thredbo and Cabramatta up here with some very strong winds as well, and low temperatures too. I mean, temperatures across the mountains are well below zero for a lot of places. Mount Buller at -2, and then up towards Falls Creek, we're also looking at -2. Thredbo is at -3, and I believe it got down to -5 as well in the mornings. In the morning when this front did come through, but it's certainly very strong indeed, this weather system that's blowing through. The rainfall and the cloud activity is actually being clumped up against the Great Dividing Range. So communities along the New South Wales coastline between Mallacoota right up towards Sydney and Newcastle, you might be wondering why it's such a dry day with all of this violent severe weather streaming in across Victoria and Tasmania. Well, you guys are missing it. The rain shield that the Great Dividing Range provides, it's working the other way now and providing the New South Wales coastline with a dry day. However, that does also mean snow and very cold conditions as far north as the Barrington Tops, which we'll talk about right now. So this is what a look at the rainfall forecast is right now. You can see snow and widespread blizzard-like conditions across the mountains through New South Wales. We're talking about snowfall accumulations currently sitting at about 3 to 4 centimetres an hour, about 10 centimetres every 3 hours, and they will be picking up throughout the course of today as well temporarily before they do ease off by this afternoon and evening. But already an awful lot of snow has fallen. We don't know exactly how much snow has fallen around Thredbo. That's where I'm most interested, but I do reckon they've had 20 centimetres, and I also reckon that they've got another 20 centimetres coming their way as well. We'll just zoom out a little bit and take a look at the weather system overall. You can see located just to the north of Tasmania, in fact just to the north of Stanley. It's going to be streaming through the Bass Strait, losing the majority of its intensity and strength throughout the course of today as it interacts with the mountains on Tasmania, but still providing a couple of showers to Tasmania and streaming in behind it some heavy showers here and there and possible storms as well for the South Australia and Victorian coastline for locations between Robe, Mount Gambier, right through to about Melbourne and Wilson's Promontory. The rainfall will be heavy at times, but however easing off by this afternoon and evening. Just a couple of showers on the Gippsland coastline of Victoria and a few showers to the west coast of Tasmania into the mountains as well. There could be a bit more snow being experienced there and maybe some freezing rain as well, but the worst of this weather clearing out by the late hours of this evening and into early tomorrow morning. Behind it, we're talking about a bit of streamy rainfall that's going to be just coming in, some typical roaring 40s behaviour, some light to moderate showers to the west coast of Tasmania, and a bit more rainfall for South Australia and Victoria as well. It could be a little bit heavy at times on Sunday, maybe accumulations up to 20 millimetres on the southeastern corner of South Australia, but the majority of this rainfall will be coastal, and if it does penetrate inland, it won't be making it more than 50 or 100 kilometres, just a couple of light showers once you get out that far. But yeah, very interested to see what the snowfall does end up being across a lot of locations through Victoria and New South Wales, because there has been an awful lot of it overnight and there is still more on the way. And then the heads up on Monday, which we will talk about a little bit later on in the video, cold conditions are going to be returning to New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland, powered by a strong high pressure system. So just a heads up, you've got some cold conditions that are going to be replacing this rainfall here. If we take a look at the snowfall accumulation map over the next 24 hours, you can see a lot of this snowfall has already fallen, might I remind you, but we're still looking at a couple of centimetres around Katoomba and Bathurst. The majority of that has already fallen, and temperatures are now rising too high for more snowfall to be reported there, but the bulk of the snowfall, of course, being where the big mountains are, Kosciuszko, Thredbo, that sort of area. 50 centimetres expected throughout the course of today there, and about 40 centimetres for Mount Buller, and about 30 centimetres expected for Mount Hotham over Victoria. So some very heavy snowfall accumulations expected there, and certainly has exceeded expectations and forecasts from both the Bureau of Meteorology and the majority of the major forecast models. I believe most of the forecast models were saying between 10 and 20 centimetres. We certainly had that in a couple of hours last night. We're now looking at probably between 30, maybe 35, 40 centimetres for the snowiest of locations. Tasmania, a negligible amount of snow is expected to continue falling. Most of this has already fallen as well around Leewunwi and Ben Lomond, so the snowfall there has basically eased off. In terms of expected snowfall going forward in the forecast, there's really not too much to be adding here. It looks like this is going to be the strong winter front that we get, and then it'll be about a week of dry weather behind it, and a week of dry weather means high pressure system. So we're going to be talking about that right now. High pressure system, as we know, always brings cold weather. It's what powered the incredible cold snap at the start of this month over Tasmania, and it's what's going to be powering another very strong cold snap in the wake of this weather system. We're going to be seeing a high pressure system develop over South Australia and the Northern Territory, bringing cold air to there, and then throughout the course of Monday or early Monday morning, we're going to see this high pressure system crawl across the nation and be providing some sub-zero nights for the northern parts of New South Wales and Queensland into the coldfields there. It will be pretty hit and miss. There will be places with a much more milder night, but widespread temperature drops to around 2 or 3 degrees through Queensland and 1 or 2 degrees in the northeastern parts of New South Wales. Now, as we move through into the later part or into the middle parts of next week, the temperatures do climb, or they do climb a little bit for Queensland and the northern parts of New South Wales, but still some cold nights through New South Wales on Tuesday. Sydney expecting to go single digits on Monday and Tuesday. Nothing outrageous, but still it is going to be quite cool for some locations. And then in the wake of another cold front, I believe it'll either be Thursday morning or Friday morning, we see some more cold temperatures across New South Wales and Victoria, especially into Victoria, actually. You can see sub-zero nights just outside of Melbourne here. Melbourne itself going down to 4 degrees on Monday, and it could be a little bit colder than that with the wind chill, considering there will be some strong winds in the area. Again, later this week and into next weekend, another very cold night looks like it is on the cards here, and the forecast becomes a little bit more uncertain later on. But yeah, more cold air. It just looks like it's going to be a cold week and a cold weekend in the wake of this major cold front, as this high pressure system has no intention of moving whatsoever out of New South Wales or Victoria. It is stock standard weather for this time of the year. I'm not talking about anything record breaking or expected to be record breaking, just the heads up to farmers and people out there that aren't a fan of the frost. Make sure you are rugging up and preparing for a frost morning as well. There is a risk of losses of lambs and sheep in a weather event like this, where temperatures do consistently for days upon days upon days are below 0 degrees, and things do freeze over, especially in the high countries. So if you are a farmer out there, just have the heads up right now that next week is going to be a chilly one, where temperatures are expected to be a few degrees, maybe up towards 5 or 6 degrees below average. That's enough talk about the cold weather. Like I said, it's stock standard for this time of the year. We're going to move up into Queensland and the Northern Territory now and show them a little bit of love. In terms of rainfall accumulation over the next 10 days, there are a few showers expected across the coast of Queensland and even into the southern parts as well. We're also talking about a bit of rainfall across the central parts of the Northern Territory, but that's way off in the forecast period. But what's caught my eye is some more rainfall up into far north Queensland. So this is certainly worth our time covering. It is certainly going to be later on in the forecast period, developing sometime around Tuesday. You've got clear and calm conditions until about Tuesday morning for the majority of far north Queensland, maybe up towards Tuesday afternoon, until the rainfall does start to build up again, and some light showers, maybe the odd storm as well, extending as far south as Mackay, covering locations such as Airlie Beach. It looks like Townsville is going to be protected from the worst of the rainfall, but they could still expect a couple of drops here and there. But this rainfall, considering it is going to be steady but persistent for a few days, it's going to add up, especially across the far north Queensland, the Cassowary coastline and the Daintree rainforest. We're looking at up to 50 millimetres over the next 10 days. The bulk of it will be falling next weekend on Saturday and Sunday, the 27th and the 28th. But we're also expecting a couple of good drops Tuesday and Wednesday. So just a heads up there, we could be seeing 20 to 30 millimetres across the wettest of locations. In terms of the Northern Territory forecast, it's been months since we talked about the Northern Territory. It looks like a low pressure trough is going to be powering a little bit of rainfall next Wednesday or Thursday across some parts of the isolated Northern Territory. But again, not really sure what all of this is about. It looks like a little bit of a model bluff at this point, but it is also, I might add, reciprocated amongst the other forecast models to a degree. The GFS has the same sort of low pressure system that could be driving this sort of weather event, but again, it really doesn't bring out any rainfall in it. And the Axis G3 is saying something very similar to the Eastern UF, but the Axis G3 can go absolutely ham on some of these weather events. So again, we will take this with a big pinch of salt, and it might just end up being that sort of weather event that we have to cover on the day, because we just can't make a proper or a good forecast on it. So I do hope that that's not the case, but it could be the case with that. Also, the heads up in far north Queensland, the cold temperatures are going to continue. We've had a little bit of a reprieve to them this morning by the looks of things. A couple of clouds have kept the really cold air at bay by the looks of things, or maybe there's no clouds. I did think that there were clouds over there just considering the pressure, but the cold temperatures do look like they are going to be over from about to, well, maybe tomorrow. You might have another night of some cold temperatures here. Mariba got down to 7 degrees last night, but that's nothing compared to the below 5 degrees that it has been getting over the past couple of days. So a bit of a reprieve to the colder will be much welcome up in far north Queensland, and also along the Queensland coastline in general. I mean, Queensland, that's the sunshine state it is. It's not the freezing cold frost morning state. Middle of winter, things can happen, especially this time of the year. It is totally normal up in far north Queensland, but I bet everyone is completely sick of the frost right now and wants to return to the mild mornings and the warm sunny days. Now, that is enough talk on Queensland, or Paradise, whatever you want to call it. We're going to move over to Western Australia now. We did have a big cold front stream through a couple of days ago, and that dumped some very healthy rainfall accumulations. It has this morning been replaced by a high pressure system, and that's driving some very cold temperatures into the eastern parts of the wheat belt and into the goldfields as well. Up towards Wiluna, or Laverton, I should be saying, we're at to 1 degrees. Warburton as well, 1 degrees, and a freezing morning at Balgo Hill outside of Meekatharra. So very, very cold indeed up there. Well, that's Wiluna, actually. Freezing morning out in Wiluna, so very, very cold indeed, but a little bit more mild in the wheat belt. And why is that? Well, that's because we do have some cloud and some rain that's expected to be streaming throughout the course of today, especially around the Perth coast and the southwest Capes. What's happening is that there's enough sort of traction between the low pressure systems down in the Tasman Sea and the Southern Ocean and a high pressure system over Western Australia that it's creating enough energy to kind of throw out some shower activity that's going to be streaming into the Perth coast, and we're going to have this showery crap, this miserable weather for the next 2 or 3 days. I mean, I shouldn't be complaining too much because it is rainfall, and all rainfall is needed. However, just a little bit miserable the weather will be, and it's really not going to amount to any rainfall either. The Perth coastal region is only expecting a couple of millimetres today and tomorrow. However, the Darling Ranges, especially down towards Serpentine, maybe south towards Collie, they could be seeing some healthier accumulations there. Over the next 3 days, you can be seeing rainfall before the next cold fronts build up. You can see rainfall amounting to about 20 millimetres there. Perth and the northern suburbs seem to really miss out, maybe 6 millimetres, and then the northern suburbs even less. But the southern suburbs could get between 10 and 15 millimetres this weekend, so just watch out if you are there. Looks like we could have some wet roads and some unpleasant weather. Certainly not weather that's going to be getting your washing done, or weather that you're going to be able to go for a nice walk in. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be pretty miserable for the most part. We've got another strong cold front building on Monday, and that's going to be crossing the coast sometime Monday afternoon and Tuesday as well. This one's going to be quite strong. It's going to have some storms in it. There will be some gusty showers as well and some heavy rainfall here and there, but I'm not expecting anything too crazy here. Again, this cold front kind of does just pop up off the coastline because of how warm the Lunar current is, so I'm expecting some very heavy showers here. Also, the chance of some water spouts down towards or south of Carnac Island down towards Bunbury, including offshore from Mandurah. I would not be surprised if a severe thunderstorm warning was issued for heavy rainfall or locally intense rainfall ahead of this cold front, because it is going to be using the Lunar current as an energy source as it gets itself close to the coastline. And you can see here the Axis G3 model, which is the convective forecast model here, going absolutely ham on thunderstorm development just before this system crosses the coast, with some heavy falls as far north as Jurien Bay and Lancelin. The rainfall should kind of cut itself off around Geraldton. Still a couple of showers expected as far north as Kalbarri. I'll zoom out to get a better picture here. And Also, the rainfall not really making it inland. A couple of drops still expected across the wheat belt, maybe 10, 15 millimeters. But once it gets itself out into the Gascoyne, the rainfall becomes very hit and miss and also very light across a lot of places. But it does look like it's going to be temporarily quite heavy and quite stormy late Monday night into early Tuesday morning for the Perth metro area. For the most part, clearing out of the Perth metro area by around 6 or 7 a.m, but still a couple of showers and a bit of steady rainfall continuing into around lunchtime or the early afternoon hours before that southerly change kicks in around that time. We just get some light showers and clearer conditions on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Now, that's not the only weather system that we've got to be worrying about. If you took a look at the rainfall accumulation map before I started talking about this cold front, you saw that there was an awful lot of rainfall streaming in the 5 to 10 day forecast period. Now, what's that being driven by? Well, again, another sort of just onshore flow by the looks of things. This is powered by a weather phenomenon called the Southern Annular Mode, and you can think of that as an energy ball that moves north and south. When it moves north over the top of Australia into the Great Australian Bight, it brings all of the winter weather north, and we get more Arctic conditions and cold fronts, not just for the southwest of Western Australia, but for the entirety of the southern states of Australia. And when it moves south, you get replaced by high pressure systems in the Great Australian Bight, cold nights, and a bigger resemblance to summer in terms of sunshine patterns when the sun's always shining and so forth. We don't get much rainfall. And in this case here, the Southern Annual Mode is going to be very far north and very much in, I believe, its positive state, which is where it's going to be providing some heavy rainfall and cold fronts and just streaming moisture into the southwest of Western Australia, and that is going to be adding up. We've got a cold front coming through by the looks of things late next weekend. Oh, that's snowfall. Clicking the wrong buttons here. We've got a cold front coming through late next weekend, sometime Friday or Saturday. That'll be bringing about maybe 15 or 20 millimeters in a worst case scenario for the southwest, maybe for Perth as well. And then Sunday, another strong cold front streaming through, and then we've got rainfall streaming in behind it next Monday. So all of this rainfall here, where we're talking about 20, maybe 30 millimeters a day for 3 or 4 days, that is going to be adding up. The rainfall starting next Friday and then continuing through Saturday and Sunday. The Bureau of Meteorology are already highlighting the chance of up to 15 millimeters next Friday for the Perth metro area, and a little bit more for some of the towns around the southwest. That is, like I said, going to be adding up. Rainfall accumulations over the next 5 days, including the cold front that we're going to be seeing come through Monday night and Tuesday morning. It'll be equating to around 50 millimeters for the wettest of locations, probably around Mandurah or somewhere southwest of Perth or to the south of Perth between Bunbury and Mandurah. I don't really reckon it's going to be the southwest Capes picking up the majority of the rainfall. Perth metro area expecting 30, but once you get further inland into the wheat belt, the rainfall will be very hit and miss, maybe a couple of millimeters expected there, 10 to 15. And then once you get into the eastern or the northern parts of the wheat belt, the rainfall becomes even more hit and miss, between 5 and 15 millimeters out there. But rainfall over the next 10 days, it's going to be huge across the southwest. In fact, Perth expecting up to 150 millimeters. So that's about 100 millimeters coming through later next weekend between Friday and Monday from the weather systems that we just talked about. And the south coast as well, between Windy Harbour across to Albany, expecting some monstrous accumulations. Now, on paper, this looks absolutely freaky. However, we're certainly not going to be seeing all of this rainfall here. You can see between the other forecast models, they're not expecting anything close to that. The Axis G3, which is probably the next most reputable forecast model for a weather system setup like this, is calling for about half the rainfall. So I do believe you could comfortably take these totals here and call for about half to maybe 2/3 of the rainfall that is actually on the forecast over the next 10 days, which for Perth being 140 millimeters, you can say 100 over the next 10 days. Still a lot of rainfall, especially in the later parts of next week, but not as much as what the forecast is saying. Mandurah, again, you can say about 100. Inland communities such as Mount Barker expecting about 30 millimeters. That's a valid forecast. And then into the wheat belt as well, the rainfall hovering between 20 and 50 millimeters for some locations. Katanning finally a bit of luck there, 50 millimeters over the next 10 days. Hopefully all of that 50 millimeters does fall. And then out towards Lake Grace as well, some good rainfall. The majority of the wheat belt actually receiving some very good rainfall, just the northern parts that are going to be a little bit dry up towards Dalwallinu and Killarney. The rainfall will be a little bit less out there. The Goldfields also expecting a few drops as well, so that is some very good news. That's a very long and detailed forecast for Western Australia and the entirety of the nation overall as well. If I have left anything unanswered, blizzard, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. If there's anything that you'd like to ask as well in terms of a weather forecast for your location, please do let me know in the comment section down below. Give me a weather report for your location as well down there too. That is all for me today. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run the show without them. Their support is greatly appreciated. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video too. Your support is also greatly appreciated. But that is all for me, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.